right. I think we're here finally. Good evening, guys. Grab a drink real quick just to get going here. Let's see, we got a couple people in here already, but before we get started on the actual answering questions and comments and things, let me get the disclaimers out of the way that I normally give. Let's adjust that camera just a tad bit here. Let's see if that's better. I think that's better. Okay, this is a weekly live broadcast, pretty much every Thursday evening, 7 o'clock Central. I'm here, and this is an Ask Me Anything session. I don't have a topic planned out. I just go through the chat, try to respond to every comment that comes through. You know, if you guys are having conversations with each other, a lot of times I'll skip those comments and just let you talk with each other. And that's fine. It doesn't bother me a bit. Only thing I ask is keep it family friendly, be polite, don't be rude to anybody, don't start cussing, don't start, being inappropriate. That'll get you booted out of here. And don't spam us, with your comments. Leave a chat in the live broadcast if you have a question. If you see me skip it or miss it somehow, sometimes it happens. I don't intentionally skip them, but sometimes it happens. I miss one or whatever. You can ask it again, but don't just ask the same question over and over and over again. Okay, so let's get into it. So, all right, who we got here? Kathy was here early, says, hello, Chris. Hope you and your family are well. Just finishing up the evening chores with the rabbits. And one of my New Zealand white does kindled. Congratulations. Says, had 9, 2 were dead. Total living of 7. And she was 2 days late, day 37. That's a little more than 2 days late. That's really late. But hey, 7's still a pretty good litter. And when you have a big litter like that, 9, 10, it's not uncommon to lose 1 or 2 of them. So, don't feel too bad about that. Congratulations on your new litter. Hope the rest of them are doing well. Hello to you, Mark. Nicholas there, good evening to you. Fred, good evening. And Kathy, oh, that was Kathy again, said hi already. Hey to Brad Smith. Horton Creek says good evening to everyone. Good evening to you too, by the way. And Fred, just got my first goat Tuesday. Only got 1. Learned that's a huge mistake. Yeah, goats are kind of social creatures. I think you need more than 1 of them. I think you need at least 2 of them to kind of keep them occupied with each other. Yeah, 1 goat can be kind of rough for sure. But hey, congratulations on the new goat, I guess. So good evening to you, Spencer. J Animal World says he. Hey, that's probably hey. Hey to you too. Watermelon production. Can you keep male quail together? Yeah, you can keep male quail together. Depending on how many you have, how old they are, there is a chance that they might kind of fight just a little bit, but you can keep them together. I've kept them together before and not had too many problems really at all. I've heard people report about problems when they're keeping their males together, that they do end up fighting and things like that, but a lot of the times I think that's just the genetics of the birds that you're dealing with. They just tend to be a little bit more aggressive. I feel like I'm cutting the top of my head off. Let's adjust that just a little bit. Oh, sorry. Hand in the camera. Now it's too high. Okay, maybe that's better. Where was I going with that? Yeah, people have reported that they've had their males fight, but again, I think that's more genetics. Sometimes birds are just a little bit more aggressive than other birds. It doesn't necessarily matter that they're with other males. They can just be aggressive birds in general. So, but I've never had too many problems. I've kept male and quail together. It's fine. You can do that for sure. All right, Spike says my quail are 6 weeks old and started laying. Is this early? It's a little bit early. It's not terribly early. It's not that uncommon for them to start laying at 6 weeks, but it is a little bit on the early side. Most of the time, you're looking at more like 8 to 12 weeks, somewhere right around in there. So 6 weeks is a little bit on the early side. Congratulations on that. Where are we at here? Jay says, hello from Kinjay. Hello to you too. And DLN says, I have 15 female quail that are 9 weeks old. I'm feeding the feed you suggest. I'm averaging about 10 eggs a day. Is that normal? 15, they're 9 weeks old. Yeah, that's pretty normal. 9 weeks old is pretty young. It's like I said, they don't usually start laying until about 8 to 12 weeks. Probably more like 8 to 10 weeks is probably the average. So 9 weeks are just starting to lay. And when they first start laying, it's pretty common for them to not lay real consistently. It takes them a little bit of time to kind of get worked up. You're going to get some strange eggs. You're going to get a little bit of tiny eggs, maybe some double yolk eggs. They'll lay one day and then maybe not for another day or two and then lay 2 or 3 days in a row. That's pretty common. Give them a week or two. They'll start leveling out and you should start getting a little bit more consistent egg supply out of them. So not uncommon at all. So, all right, Brad says, have you eaten any of the Cornish chickens? And if so, how are they? They were fantastic. I had one. We processed, let it rest till it wasn't, stiff anymore from rigor mortis, in the ice chest basically, and then brined it for about 5 hours in a brown sugar brine, and then put it on the rotisserie grill, stuffed some herb butter with some oregano, thyme. What else was in there? Oregano, thyme, parsley, and what am I missing? Oregano, thyme, parsley. I think there was something else in there. Rosemary, a little bit of rosemary. Mix that in with some good, some butter real good. Stuff that up under the skin in several spots. Put it on the rotisserie on the grill. And it was probably one of the best chickens I've ever had. It was really, really good. So got to try that sometime, I guess. Sujak says, why didn't you use a dehydrator for your garlic? Or can you? Well, yeah, you can use a dehydrator. You can dehydrate garlic. You're probably best if you're going to do that to slice it up pretty thin and then dehydrate it instead of trying to dehydrate the entire bulb. I'm assuming you want to dry it out and use it like garlic powder or something like that. Yeah, you can do that for sure. I didn't do it because I like using fresh garlic, and we use a lot of garlic, so I don't find the need to dehydrate it and to save it up. I might do that with some of it, but honestly, I'll probably use all that up before it goes bad. But like I said, we eat a lot of garlic. I like it quite a bit. All right, Jason says, howdy from Magna, Utah. Hello to you. And hello to you, Watchdog. Who else we got in here? Sophie. Today my small hatch of quails turned 7 weeks old. I learned that I had 4 males and 1 female today. The female's head is very bloody and ripped out. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Do you think she will live, and what can I do? She probably will live. They recover from those things remarkably well. There's not really a whole lot you have to do other than reduce your rooster count. Definitely, in fact, even a 1-to-1 ratio is too many roosters for hens. You really need about 4 or 5 hens for every rooster that you have. Now, if you want fertile eggs from that one hen, what you can do is you can rotate the rooster in and out. So I would get rid of 3 of those roosters or move them to their own cage. Take one of them, leave him in there with her for a couple of days, let him breed, and then remove him. They'll stay fertile for up to 10 days after they've been bred. So you can just put him in there maybe a couple of days a week, 2 or 3 days a week, take him out for 3 or 4 days, put him back in for 2 or 3, take him out for 4 or 5, give her a little bit of a break and a chance to heal up. She'll probably be fine. There's probably not much you have to do other than just, like I said, give her a break from the roosters, get her away from them for a little while, let her heal up. Grab another drink here. All right, to live is to suffer says, roughly how much should quail weigh at 4 weeks? Boy, I don't know if I can answer that. I don't know that I've ever weighed my quail at 4 weeks old. That's a good question. I don't know if I have the right answer for that at all. At 4 weeks old, they're going to be, well, roughly half the size of adult quail. So if they're jumbo birds, an adult jumbo quail is like 10, 11 ounces, something like that, maybe 12. So you're looking at probably 4 or 5 ounces, something like that. But I don't know. That's just a guess. I don't think I've ever weighed my 4-week-old quail before. Good question. All right, Watchdog says, what can I do to find out if my rabbit is bred? That's really tricky. If you want to know if the rabbit's pregnant for sure or not. Well, assuming you put her in with a male, you saw the male mount her and fall off, the successful fall off that they have when they breed, count on her being pregnant. Just assume she is. Even if she was in with a male and you didn't see all that happen, assume she's pregnant. 9 times out of 10, that's what's going to happen. It's rare for them to be in proximity with a male and not be bred. As far as to tell for sure, it's really tricky. They don't really show a lot of signs that they're pregnant until it's like time to have the babies. You can palpate them, but that's really hard to do. It's not really something that's very easy to do. The best bet is wait 30 days from the day that she was, wait 35 or 36 days anyway, just to be on the safe side. From the time that she was with the male, see if she has babies, get a nest box ready, put it in on about day 30. Now what you can do is, as she gets close to that day 30, probably day 28, day 27, maybe 29, somewhere right around in there, start throwing a handful of straw in her cage every day. If she picks it up and starts running around the cage with it in her mouth, hanging out both sides, it'll be pretty obvious what I'm talking about. Then that's almost a for sure sign that she's pregnant. But most of them don't do that until about day 28, 27, maybe 29, somewhere right around in there. So before that, there's just not a lot you can do to really know for sure that she's pregnant. It's just, palpating the does is really, really hard. If you're not experienced with it, it's almost impossible to figure out what you're feeling. So I don't have great advice for you, unfortunately. I'm sorry. All right, Layla says, my quail females go broody and Broody a lot, please. Why? My female quails go broody a lot, please. Why? That's unusual. Most of the time they do not go broody. It's very rare actually for caged Coturnix to go broody. So I don't know if I have a great suggestion for you on that. If you don't want them to go broody, like you want them to continue laying eggs, make sure you're collecting the eggs. Don't leave them in there for prolonged periods of time. That'll help with that. What else can you do? I'm not sure if I have any other suggestions for you, unfortunately. Give them a couple of days, they'll probably get over it and start laying eggs again. Again, it's not common for Coturnix quail to go broody and to sit on eggs, at least not long enough to incubate them. So they might go broody for a couple of days or act like they're going broody, I guess, but then they give up on it and they kind of go back to normal. All right, Kathy says, I get my does to day 35. I don't consider them late until after that. All my does kindle a little late. Oh yeah, you're right. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have said it's a little bit later than 2 days, but most rabbits are on day 30, but not all. Like you said, day 35 is not uncommon. So yeah, I wouldn't consider it late until day 35. All right, Spencer, Chris, I would like to learn how to make my own quail feed. Could you make a video on what grains to use, which to avoid, how to proper nutritional value, etc.? Boy, that's a big topic. I don't know that I'm qualified to cover that one, man. There's a huge variety of foods that quail are going to need in their diet. Now, keep in mind, quail are not herbivores, solely herbivores. They're omnivores. They're going to eat both insects and grains and vegetables and plant matter, all those kinds of things. So they need a real variety in their diet, and I'm not an expert on that. I don't know what the exact mix of each one is. That's a lot of research you're going to have to do on that. I'm sorry, I'm probably not the one that's going to be able to answer that one for you. That's one of the reasons why I just buy quail food, because it's so much easier. That's a pretty big topic. I don't think I can address it. I'm sorry. Verna says, hey Chris, how's the weather treating you? It's so hot here. I put ice packs in the cages. Yeah, it's hot here too. It's about, I don't know what all that means. I saw strange comment come up. I'll get to it eventually. All right, so where are we at here with the weather treating me? Oh yeah, it's hot here too. Southwest Missouri in July, we're actually pretty lucky. It hasn't been over 100 yet, not temperature wise anyway. The heat index is over 100 about every day, but not the temperature itself. It's only been in the high 90s, 97, 98, somewhere right around in there, which is plenty hot enough, especially the humidity. We did have a storm move through this morning, and it kind of cooled it off. So for most of the day, it wasn't too bad. But then the clouds parted, the sun came out, and it got hot again. So it's not too bad though. You get used to it. It's just summertime. That's the way summertime is. Chris says, "Hi Chris, we recently had our first litter of rabbits. One was born on the cage floor. Mom displayed no nesting behavior. 19 hours later, 12 more were born in the nest box. Is that normal?" Let's see, 1, 12, that's 13 baby rabbits. That's not really normal. That's a huge litter. But it's not that abnormal for them to have one on the nest box or on the cage floor. And they don't really tend to, most of my rabbits don't display any nesting behavior until they have their babies. It's other than, like I said, you might see them picking up some straw and running around with it hanging out of their mouth. But other than that, there's nothing else going on. They don't build a nest necessarily. They don't pull any fur. They have their babies and then they do all that. And it's not uncommon for them to have one on the cage floor and then the rest of them in the nest box, especially if you pick that one up and put it in the nest box. They kind of figure that out after a while. A lot of times your first time moms especially don't really know what the nest box is for. They end up having their babies on the cage floor. You pick them up, you put them in the nest box, and they take care of them, no problem at all. But, like what you described right there, that's not that uncommon at all. For them to have one on the nest or the cage floor and then kind of figure it out and move to the nest box and have the rest of them where they're supposed to. Not abnormal, but good grief, 13 baby rabbits, that's a big litter. Hopefully she'll be able to take care of all of them. That's a little bit tricky for them to do, so good luck with that. I hope it works. All right, Michael says, good evening. I had my second batch of Coturnix quail hatch, and I got a white one. Has that ever happened to you? Well, when I had white quail, yeah, it did. I don't think I've ever gotten a white one out of my jumbo farrows or meat makers, though. In fact, I don't think I've ever gotten anything out of those guys except for other jumbo meat makers or jumbo farrows. But it isn't, it can happen. Your jumbos, all your quail are bred down from the same genetics, and it's just a mutation that causes a white quail. So, it could be a number of different things. It could be mutated genes that just for whatever reason happened. It could be that, maybe your birds have a recessive trait for the white quail and a couple of them bred together and you just happen to get those genes that paired up just right to make a white quail. It could happen for sure. But no, I don't think it's ever happened to me except for whenever I was breeding white quail together. But I do get, every once in a while, I have gotten from previous birds, not the batches that I have now, like a tuxedo or something like that came out of them that just, didn't match the parents. It was different. Callie from Canada says, with quail, do I add a male to the female pen or add females to a male pen? It doesn't really matter. When you go to add adult quail together, whether you're adding males to the females or females to the male or whatever, it doesn't matter. There's probably going to be some fighting, especially if they're mature birds at that point. They're very territorial. So, excuse me, if you do add them, all together and they're new to each other, they're probably going to pick on each other for a little while and establish kind of a pecking order, so to speak. But that doesn't really matter whether, like I said, whether you're adding the hens to the rooster's pen or the rooster to the hen's pen. I keep all my birds together. Typically, I tend to keep them together from the time that they hatch all the way up until they become the breeders. So I don't really like to mix in birds with each other that haven't been raised together. If you do it in the off season, like in the wintertime when they're not laying, they're not crowing, they're a little bit more docile at that point, you might be able to get away with it. But if they're laying eggs and they're crowing, they're probably going to fight if you try to mix them together. Just be prepared for that. Sometimes it's not that bad. They usually work it out. But it can get pretty aggressive at times. All right, Watermelon Production says, hey, Chris, what are the eggs that are white or blue that my quail are laying? Those are probably quail eggs. Sorry, I'm being a little bit of a smart aleck. Yeah, you'll get some strange eggs. You'll get eggs that just tend to be a little bit more on the white side. And some birds lay those more frequently than others. Probably has something to do with their genetics. Celadon eggs are a blue-green egg, kind of a bluish-green. Completely bluish green, no spots on them, nothing like that. But if they have the celadon gene and they're laying celadon eggs, it's going to be every egg they lay. So if you're talking about just a white or a bluish color kind of to the egg every once in a while, it's just a weird egg that they lay. I mean, there's not any special name for it that I know of. Hopefully that answers that. James says, cats are getting in my quail coop. What should I do? Sounds like you should set some traps and catch some cats. That would be my opinion. If you can't secure your coop to where they can't get in, or if they're just making their way through everything, if they belong to somebody in your neighborhood, you might go talk to your neighbors, let them know, hey, your cats are coming over to my property. They're, pestering my animals, those kinds of things. If that doesn't work, if you live in town, you can try to contact animal control to get them under control. If that doesn't work, like I said, I'd get some live traps, bait them, catch the cats, take them down to the pound or something like that. Somebody will pick them up, I'm sure, and take care of them. And by take care of them, I mean treat them well. That's what I would do with it anyway. I'd go those directions. I'd first try to talk to my neighbors, see if they can keep their cats, more locked up. If they won't do that, maybe animal control is an option, or again, just trap them and take them to animal control yourself. All right, now if there are feral cats, feral meaning completely wild, not anybody's pet, they're just feral wild cats, then just shoot them. Feral cats are a huge problem. And I know it sounds cold-hearted, I don't mean it that way, but feral cats are a huge problem. Cats kill everything. And they can really decimate a wild bird population, your rodents, which is not a bad thing, decimating the rodents, but snakes, lizards, all those kinds of things. They can really throw an ecosystem out of whack. So they really need to be eradicated if they're feral. All right, Jeffrey says, hello from Thibodaux, I think it is, Louisiana. I always have a hard time with that one. Hello to you. Thanks for joining. Let's see, Phyllis, how's your wife doing? She's doing pretty good. She's got a few little health problems. We've got to go to the doctor for some checkups on, but it's nothing major at this point. I'll update you guys if I know more about it, but just some follow-up appointments. If you guys don't know, my wife had cancer, breast cancer, but she beat it. Actually got it very early, and it was my mom had breast cancer when I was a kid, and that was a tough battle. My mom had a really hard battle. Eventually lost it like after 20 some odd years, But it was a hard battle. My wife's was different than that. And my wife's was, I hate to say easier, but in a way it was easier. I mean, she did have double mastectomy. That's not easy. She went through radiation treatment, but she didn't have to have chemotherapy. And so far, it's gone. So, we're very, very blessed. God has done a good job taking care of us there. But she's had a couple of recurring issues. Found out she has, what is it? A P10 gene, I think is what it's called. And which causes her to be more prone to things like breast cancer, and causes her to grow, could cause her to grow polyps. She had something growing on her tonsils, so they took her tonsils out a while back, just a couple of weeks ago, because there was a polyp growing on them, and she'd never had them removed. So, I mean, some of those kinds of things. But, for the most part, she's doing pretty good. We just got like I said, got a couple of follow-up doctor's appointments we got to go to, and, just keep an eye on her, make sure she continues to do well. Thank you for asking, by the way. I appreciate it. Callie says, when dehydrating garlic, I would suggest putting the dehydrator outside. Do the same with onions. That's probably a good suggestion, unless you have unwanted guests around. Then it might be a good idea to do it inside. But you're right. That's probably a good suggestion. It's kind of the same thing when you're making pickles and you're boiling vinegar and water and stuff. Boy, don't stick your head over there and take a deep breath. It's like mace. Logan says, my 2 does had their babies 2 weeks ago. I got 17 altogether, and they won't stop jumping out. When should I flip the nest box? Let's see. 2 weeks ago, it's when at 2 weeks old. If they're spending most of their time outside of the nest box at 2 weeks old, especially in the summertime, I just take the nest box out, so they don't need it anymore at that point. Usually, what I find, excuse me. What was I going to say? Usually what I find is that about 10 days old, somewhere right around in there, I'll find like one of the babies out of the nest box, or maybe all of them out of the nest box, and I'll pick them up and put them back in. And then maybe the next day, they'll still all be in there. Maybe one of them will be out or something like that, and I'll go ahead and pick them up and put them back in. But usually by day 13, day 14, somewhere right around in there, they can get in and out as much as they want. And when they start spending most of their time outside of the nest box, I just take the nest box out. If they're still having a hard time where they can't quite climb back in it, then you might leave it in there for just a little while longer. You could turn it on its side, like you said, but probably no more than just another 3 or 4 days, maybe even a week at the most, and you should be able to pull that nest box out of there. They just don't need it anymore. All right, New Mexico Dust Bunny says, everyone, it's probably hi everyone. Hope you're all well. I have a question. How long will raw rabbit keep in the fridge? Boy, that's a good question. I don't know. Probably depends on a few things. I wouldn't think I would keep it for more than about a week and a half, maybe something like that. I try to use it up within that time frame. Just treat it like any other meat, and that's generally what I do. I don't like to keep things for more than about a week and a half in the fridge thawed out. There's a good chance they're going to start going bad at that point. All right. Fred says, how did your squash do? Actually, pretty well. All but one. One of them I lost. It didn't make it. Well, other than the one you saw me pull out because it didn't make it. It was too far gone. The others that I went around and dug the vine borers out of, all the rest of them are doing fine except for one. One looks like it's not going to make it. It's shriveling up. It's wilting up. So I'm probably going to pull it out of there. But the rest of them look like they're fine. They look like I caught it early enough. So New Mexico Dust Bunny says, I'm so worried about my rabbits this weekend. The sun, we are supposed to hit 105. Yeah, keep them in the shade. As long as they're in the shade, they're probably going to be okay. The shade, plenty of ventilation, that's the key. And if you're in New Mexico, it's a really dry environment. You can try wetting down their cage, not the cage, not where they're sitting, but like the hutch, around the hutch, and that evaporation will help keep it a little bit cooler too. You can also run some fans blowing like over the top of the cages, not directly on the rabbits, but over the top to get some air circulation going. That can help as well. There's a couple things you can do with that. They're probably going to do okay. Just don't pester them too much. Leave them alone. Let them rest. Keep them out of the sun. Keep them in the shade. Plenty of ventilation, and they'll probably be fine. All right. Let's see where we at here. Carson says, where do you find breeding rabbits? Mostly Craigslist is where I look. You might do some Google searches around. If there's a rabbitry around you or something like that, you can look for rabbitries in your state or in your city or something like that. And sometimes you'll find one. They don't necessarily advertise really strongly, but you might be able to find one. Look at like 4-H groups, state fairs. Any of those kinds of things are good places to get rabbits. But usually what I do is I just search Craigslist. Most people that have rabbits are advertising them on Craigslist. to sell. So that's where I look. Sometimes you have to drive a little ways. Like you may have to go, an hour drive or so to get some decent quality rabbits. Excuse me, I'm having a hard time here. My throat is dry today. Every day it seems like anymore. Must be a sign of getting older. Verna says, if you want to know the weight of a common 4-week-old, then talk to Zach at MyShire Farm. He has all the data. You're probably right. He probably does. If you guys don't know who MyShire Farm is, they are a quail hatchery. They do a lot of quail business. So yeah, you're probably right. He does a lot of quail videos too. Talks a lot about them. He might be able to tell you the weight of them at 4 weeks. I've just never bothered to weigh them that young. Which, by the way, I've got. You guys probably can't hear it. There's all this rustling going on over here. I got quail hatching. They just started hatching yesterday morning, or yesterday evening, I should say. So tomorrow I'll be getting quail out of the incubator. We'll see how I did. I can't tell right now because the windows are all fogged up, so I can't see through it to see how many are hatched. All right. Carson says, where do you find breeding rabbits? I think we answered that one. Michael says, hello from Big Mike and the family from Long Island. Hope you are all having a good week. I found baby rabbits last week. Now we have 5 babies running around the yard. The kids absolutely love it. Awesome. They won't stick around long, so enjoy them while you can. They'll be gone here pretty quick. Mason says, my quail are getting picked on, and the one male I have with 5 females has a really bloody head. Yeah, sounds like you got a really aggressive female in there. That happens, and what I find most of the time is the females that are more aggressive than the males. But yeah, if you can find out which one it is, I would call her out of the flock. It's probably one bird in particular that's the instigator, and that's the one that's really causing the most problems. So you may have to watch them for a while, but you should be able to tell if you watch them for just a little while which one it is. She'll be the one that just kind of runs the others off from the feeders, all that kind of stuff. She'll be the boss, basically, and I would call her out. I don't really put up with that kind of aggression in my flocks. What you're describing is pretty common with an aggressive hen, and they do tend to pick around the male, their face, their eyes. They can put their eyes out, so just keep an eye on them. All right, Brad says, what size wire do you use on your rabbit cages? Let's see, rabbit cages on the floors, I use, I think it's 1/2 by 1? Oh my goodness, it's been a little while since I built rabbit cages. I'm trying to remember. I think it is 1. Is it 1x2? That seems awful big. Wouldn't be 1x2, would it? Maybe it is 1x2 inch. Maybe that's right. Yeah, that is 1 inch by 2 inch on the floors. No, that's not right. 1 inch. Oh my gosh, I gotta go look. I can't remember. Hang on just a second here. Let me look at my notes here. I've got notes right here that says it. It'll tell me. What is that? Okay, I use 1/2 inch by 1 inch on the floors. I gotta get back to my chat so I can see what we're talking about. Goodness, I'm sorry. You think I would know. 1/2 inch by 1 inch. Yeah, thank you. I have such a hard time remembering numbers. Now, the reason I have a hard time with that is because the sides, I do use 1 inch by 2 inch on the sides of the cages because it's cheaper wire. So you can use that on the sides and on the roof. If you're using it for a doe's cage, always run a strip of that 1/2 by 1 inch wire around the bottom of it. They call it baby saver wire. Just about 2 inches of it or so, and just run that around the base of the cage on the wall, so you don't have babies squeezing out. They get out of the nest box for whatever reason, they crawl across cage floor, squeeze through that bigger wire, and fall on the ground. But yeah, on the cage floor, it's always 1/2 by 1 inch. You can use bigger wire on the sides and get away with it because it's a lot cheaper. All right. All right, Lauren says, if it's so hot outside, will the male go sterile? They can. It's not necessarily a guarantee. Anything over about 85 degrees can cause a male rabbit to go sterile temporarily while it's that hot. They'll get over it again if you get a couple of, a week or two of, cooler weather. But it's not a guarantee. Not all rabbits do that. In fact, I've never had that issue, but it is a possibility. All right, Heather says, what if I just started watching your videos and I don't get what you're saying? Well, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. Is it because I speak too fast? Is it, I don't know. You're going to have to help me out here. I'm not sure why you wouldn't get what I'm saying or how to fix that for you. I wish I could. All right, hello to you, Wilton. Carson says, where do you find breeding rabbits? Okay, Carson, you got to calm down with this, buddy. Give me time to answer questions. This is like the 5th or 6th time you asked that question. And I didn't even get to it yet. All right. Where are we at here? Gravity Toy says, good evening. I hope you and yours are doing well. I'm contemplating setting up a brooder using a seed germination heat mat as a heat source. Do you see any potential problems with this? I don't know. How warm does it get? I'm not sure. It's a thought. It's something maybe worth trying, but I'm not sure it would put off enough heat to keep the birds warm enough. It might. I don't know. Try it and see. But I don't know if it'd work in the wintertime. In the summertime when it's already pretty warm out, it might do a decent job and do just fine for them. Heather says, yeah, people watching this, most people don't do that. Don't do what? What are we missing? I'm sorry, Heather. I'm not sure what we're talking about now. Somebody about stealing an apartment. I don't know what we're talking about. Gingerbeard says, good evening, Chris. How are you? Hope you're doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you very much. Hillbilly Pepping says, hot weather, I get less eggs. Do you? Not really. Sometimes when the hot weather first hits, they'll slow down for a couple of days, but then they pick back up. It's not really usually an issue. Make sure they got plenty of water, make sure they got plenty of food. There's no other stress factors for them. If they're in the sun where they're getting direct sun, they don't have a way to get out of it. That can definitely be a stress factor. That could cause them to slow down or shut down on the egg production. But other than that, I don't really have problems with it. All right. St. Fornaris says, good day to everyone. Where are we at here? Verna talking to somebody else. Good evening from Arkansas. That's from Chris. Good evening to you. Fred says, how many quail do you keep in an 8-foot by 3-foot by 18-inch pen? You can kind of figure about one bird for every, or 1 square foot per bird. So if you've got an 8 by 3, that's going to be, I got to do the math here, 8, 16, 24, right? Is that right? Yes, 24. Always got to double check my math. I'm not that great at it sometimes. So that's 24 square feet. So you could keep 24 birds in there. Honestly, you can probably get away with 25 to 30 birds in there if you wanted to. But I wouldn't go much more than that. Hello to you, Boris. New Mexico Dust Bunny says, last week my doe was nesting, packing her mouth with straw, but no babies yet. Do does exhibit nesting behaviors with false pregnancies? They can, very well can. It can happen. So, let's see, you said last week, that doesn't give me enough information to say that it's a false pregnancy or not. If she's, 35 days or more past her due date, like past the date she was bred, then I would consider it probably a false pregnancy at this point. But yeah, it can happen. Or, a failed pregnancy. Sometimes they have a failed pregnancy. So it could have been that too. It's hard to say. All right, Fred says, white and jumbo mix make some beautiful quails. Yeah, they do, actually. I kind of am partial to my jumbos, my meat makers, my pharaohs. I don't really notice a difference between them. In fact, with this hatch I've got, they're all mixed together. I don't know which ones are which. They're just going to become mixed up. I don't care anymore. I'm not keeping them separate anymore. I can't tell the difference between them. They're pretty much identical birds. But the white ones, they do make some pretty birds and they make some interesting birds. The functionality and I like the standard browns better. They're just easier to deal with for me. All right, Ricardo says, good evening. One of my does had ear mites, so I used some olive oil to cure it. But since then, my male wouldn't mate with her because her scent. I don't know. Any tips? That's weird. I don't know what would cause that either. Probably something else going on there. If your male's not looking to mate, it could be the heat. If it's summertime and if it's really hot where you live, it could be the heat. He's just not in the mood, or for whatever reason, because it's too hot out. It could be that he's overweight. That's a really common issue when a buck is not willing to breed, being a little bit on the overweight side. Those are probably the two biggest things that I can think of for that. I don't think it would have anything to do with the olive oil cure, but who knows? Maybe. I've never had that problem though. I would lean more towards, like I said, being too hot out and he's just not looking to get active, or maybe he's a little bit on the overweight side or something like that. All right, Wilton says, hey Chris, from the Bahamas, I have 2 mutt mixed breeders, does, New Zealand Flemish. Should I wait to breed them at 8 months, or is 6 months okay? It's hard. Probably okay at 6 months. Generally with the Flemish Giants, you want to wait until they're a little bit on the older side. probably 8 to 10 months, somewhere right around in there. Being that they're a mix between a New Zealand and a Flemish, you're probably going to be okay at 6 months. If you're questioning, just go to 7 months. Just give them one more extra month just to be on the safe side, just to be sure, and then go ahead and breed them at that point. You're probably fine. All right, my quail are getting picked on. This is from Mason. My quail are getting picked on, and the one male I have with 5 females has a really bloody head. Didn't we answer that already? I think I did, didn't I? Yep, I did. I got that one answered for you. All right. Live to Fish says, what's up, man? Nothing. What's up with you? And Heather wants a shout out, so there's your shout out, Heather. All right, Michael says, I have 6 tomato plants in 5-gallon buckets. They are doing great. I know some people have had bad luck with buckets. I use Miracle Grow Solid and soak them 2 times a day. So far, so good. Wish me luck. Good luck with them. Yeah, I haven't had good luck with tomatoes in buckets. I've tried to grow them in buckets before, and of course, a lot of it depends on the variety of tomato you're growing. If you're growing like a patio tomato or a specific, container tomato of some kind, they're probably going to do a lot better. But I tried to grow like, mortgage lifter, beefsteak, 6-foot tall tomatoes in buckets, and they did not do well at all. I had problems with them, just like blossom end rot and all those kinds of things. And I just don't think it was enough room for them. But hey, good luck with them. I hope they're working out. 2 times a day soaking them. It seems like a lot to keep up with, but apparently it's working. So, all right, where are we at here? Steve says, hello from Alabama. Hello to you. Samuel, what size cages do you use for quail? I think I kind of answered that already, but somebody else's comment. It depends on how many birds you want to keep. You can figure about 1 square foot per bird is about how much space you need to give them. So it depends on how many birds you want to keep as to how big your quail hutch needs to be. Now you can go a little bit denser than that, but that's a good baseline to kind of figure it out. My hutches are, I think one of them, are they both 6 foot or are they 8 foot? I don't remember now. I think they're 8 foot. They're 8 foot by 3 foot wide. So they're like 24 square feet. And I pretty regularly get up to about 30 birds in there. But so that gives you an idea, hopefully. All right. Chris says, don't forget to give Chris a thumbs up. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. KC says, let me scroll up here so we can get down here. All right. Hello. I got some baby quails that just hatched about 3 weeks ago and mixed them with my adult birds. So now the adults are laying more. Is that normal? I think that's what that says. There's a little bit of typo or something in there that made it hard to read, but I think that's what you're asking me. The birds started laying more when you move the baby quails in. I don't know. That's not normal. No. I mean, I can't figure out, were they not laying very well before is my question. Maybe I'm not getting the question right. I don't know. So no, it's probably just a coincidence. Especially, let's see. Did it tell me hatched about 3 weeks ago? Mix them in with my adult birds. So now the adults are laying more. Is that normal? Yeah, I don't know. That stumps me. Chances are it doesn't have anything to do with that. You probably just, they were not laying very good for some reason, molting or something like that before, and then it just happened to coincide with whenever the new birds moved in that they started laying more consistently. All right, Gabrielle says, awesome channel, thumbs up and sub, guys. Hey, Chris, was wondering if you made any progress on the solar lights for the quail. Did you decide it's better to let them go through regular cycles of daylight? Well, I don't know that it matters, honestly, but yeah, the solar light's pretty much a done project. I ran it through Kickstarter twice, didn't get not even halfway funded on it. So yeah, I just kind of gave it up. Who knows, maybe at some point I'll work something out. Be able to get, maybe smaller order of it that I can be able to offer it out to sale for you guys and don't have to go through, the Kickstarter to try to get the funding. But at this point, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. I'll keep you updated if it does, though. But I still use them. I still use the prototypes that I had built. They still work great. Right now in the summertime, I don't need them. And it's in the fall and the winter and early spring that I do need them. But I still use them. I mean, I don't, there are a lot of people that think, well, no, I'm going to let them go through normal daylight. But honestly, my birds don't last that long. I tend to change them out, replace them with new birds about every 1.5 to 2 years. So yeah, keeping them laying all through the winter is not a big deal to me. I don't think it's a problem. All right. Heather says, wow, why would you shoot a cat and dog? Well, I didn't say anything about shooting a dog, but I'm not against shooting a dog if there's a good reason for it. Like you've got a super aggressive feral dog, you've got a rabid dog, something like that. That's about the only time I would probably do that with a dog. Now, cats, feral cats. Now, again, I'm talking about feral cats. I'm not talking about domestic cats that somebody's pet that got out of their house and is roaming around a little bit. I'm talking about a feral cat. Feral cats are completely wild. They're not domesticated anymore. They've gone back to being wild. They're not native to our country. Excuse me. They're not native to our country. They're invasive in that sense, and they can do a lot of damage to the ecosystem, kill everything around. So they really need to be removed. You can shoot them, you can trap them, but if you trap them, then you've got a wild feral cat on your hand that you can't release anywhere because it's not a native wild species. So what do you do with it? That's why. Let's see, 13 lack for what? I don't know. Maybe I got your name right. It says, just purchased some property looking at raising some meat, probably. Would you suggest rabbits or quail? Why not both? Do them both, man. It depends. What do you like to do? I mean, what do you like better? Do you like to eat rabbit better than you like to eat quail? Or you like to eat quail better than you like to eat rabbit? If you're looking for some very quick startup that you can ramp up and ramp down quickly, quail are probably easier that way. You can't just twist a rabbit's ear and get her to have more babies. It's a little bit trickier with the rabbits. Not trickier, but it takes a little bit more time, a little bit more patience. You're going to get smaller amounts. Now, the payoff is bigger. You get a bigger meal out of a rabbit than you do out of a handful of quail. But you can just set, I don't know what that is. You can get, you can just save as many eggs as you want, incubate them, and then have that many quail in 8 weeks. Whereas you can't just, make a 12 litters or 12 babies in a litter instead of 8, something like that. So, quail may be the best place to start. You get dual yield out of them as well. You get eggs and you get meat. So that's a good benefit of them. Either way, you can't go wrong though. I would suggest doing both, having a little bit of diversity, but you may want to start one, get it going, and then start the other. Anyway, hopefully that helps. Gingerbeard says, for what it's worth, pulling chicks from the brooder to move them outside, 12 chicks, all hens. What are the odds? LOL. Well, yeah, pretty bad odds, but good. I mean, that's fantastic luck, so very nice. All right, Heather, you're going to have to quit with the shout-out stuff. I already gave you your shout-out. Quit with spamming us. What's going on down here? Somebody's upset. What? Hey, why are you shooting cats? I don't get the point here. What? I don't know. There's something going on down there I don't have time to deal with. So you guys work it out. If I see hateful comments, I'll... Heather, you don't want me eating rabbits. You are on the wrong channel. I'm sorry to say that. And I don't mean that of, like hateful or anything like that, but that's exactly what my channel is about. Raising your own meat, raising your own vegetables, raising your own eggs, producing your own eggs. And rabbits are part of that, unfortunately. So I'm sorry if that offends you. If it does, you're going to want to go somewhere else. Because you're probably going to be offended a whole lot. So I'm sorry. I'm not doing it to offend you. That's just who we are here. So, all right. Watchdog says rabbit. I don't know what that is. Talking to somebody else. Heather Carlson, we got other things. Essentially, Kimberly says, congratulations to your wife. I'm glad she beat the cancer. Me too. And thank you. Appreciate that. Verna says, Chris, you need a moderator to deal with the spammers. I know, I do. I'm always so busy with all this stuff. I don't have time to deal with spammers. Is there a lot going on here? I think Heather is probably a child, and I think what we'll do is just boot her out. There we go. Hide user on the channel. There we go. Now we should not be able to see any of that, hopefully. All right. Sorry about that. Where was I? I lost place of where I was in the comments. About 3 weeks ago, adult birds. So I'm just going to start up somewhere, and if I missed your comment, I'm sorry. I was dealing with some both our names. Thank you. Finally, thank you. Yeah, sorry. Okay, I'm going to start here. DLN says, that was right after the spammer comment. I think that's where I was. Goodness, I'm sorry, guys. I'm a little distracted tonight and having a hard time keeping on track. How are we doing on time? 15 more minutes. DLN says, I have my quails in my detached garage. I was been running around 85 degrees during the day. How would the quail do with the garage door closed if I leave town for a couple of days? If you don't have a window or something like that, I'd be a little bit concerned about them. Run some fans or something, but at the same time, I'm a little bit paranoid about running fans when I'm not around to monitor them in a place like a garage. Now, it is detached, so here's the reason I'm paranoid about it. The only house fire I ever had was caused by a fan. The fan motor just overheated and caught on fire and caught the house on fire. And luckily we were there, we caught it, we put it out before the house was destroyed, but it always makes me a little paranoid to leave a fan running when I'm not around. You might look at getting something like those little computer fans that go in, like desktop computers, and you can mount those on the cages maybe and run those off of like a battery. And a battery should run, like if you get a good deep cell battery, you can probably run those for 2 or 3 days off of a battery. And that'll provide a little bit of wind flow for them and kind of keep them a little bit cooler. You're probably okay, but I would be a little concerned shutting up a garage and getting awful stuffy in there and not enough ventilation. If you have a window you can open up, I wouldn't worry about it. Just open the window and be fine. All right. Mason says, my quail are getting picked on and one of the male with 5 females has a really bloody head. Yeah, I think we answered that one, didn't we? All right. T-Max says, hello, Chris from Perth, Australia. It's 8:20 a.m. Friday. First time catching you live. I love your quail coops. Well, thanks. Thanks for joining us all the way from Australia. You guys are way ahead of us. It's already Friday there. I'm kind of jealous. But, hello to you, Samuel. Samuel from Slovakia. Got people all over the world showing up tonight. All right. Zira says, weird question. Recently found out my cat is allergic to the food I have. Shelter will not take it because it's already open. Oh, will not take the food. Okay, gotcha. They won't take the food because it's already open. My question is, can that be added to my compost or maybe dug into my gardens? Yeah, you could do either one. You could do that with either one. I'm not sure it's a great addition to your garden right offhand. I mean, it wouldn't hurt it, but I just don't know that it's that great of an addition. Yeah, you could throw it in your compost pile. That'd be fine. What I would do is just offer it up on Craigslist or on Facebook Marketplace, something like that. Or, just check and see if you got a friend that has a cat that wants cat food, and offer it up that way. There for a minute, I thought you said they wouldn't take the cat because it was open already. And I thought, what'd you do to your cat? But all right, Paula says, how do you keep quail cool in the summer? They seem to be panting frequently. Should I be concerned about them overheating? I've never had a quail die from overheating. Not that I know of anyway. I mean, you have a random bird that dies every once in a while for whatever reason. You just never know. But for the most part, no, I've never had problems with it. I wouldn't stress about it too much. Biggest things, keep them in the shade. And not just like the shade of their hutch. Keep them like, my hutches are tucked under the trees, so they get shade there. They never really get direct sun hitting the hutch itself. And I think that's an important thing. Make sure they have access to lots of water. Make sure they have good ventilation. They'll be fine. You will notice them sometimes kind of panting. But again, as long as they have shade, access to fresh water, and good ventilation, they should be fine. I wouldn't worry about it too much. All right, Chris says, I put a tarp over my quail cage to give them some shade. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. You could provide a second, shelter above their shelter to provide them with a little bit of shade. That should work pretty well. Excuse me. I feel like I'm straining my vocal cords tonight for some reason. Let's see. Vern is talking to somebody else. Heather. Essentially, Kimberly says, Paula, freeze water-filled soda bottles and put them in your quail cages. That really seems to help mine. I'm not saying that's a bad idea at all. What I found when I did frozen water bottles and put them in like my rabbit hutches and things, the rabbits didn't use them at all. First of all, my rabbits didn't care. Second of all, they're thawed out by like noon. So it's, noon's like when it gets hot, so it's not really that beneficial for me because I'm going to work. So I throw it in there in the morning, and by the time they need it, it's already thawed out and it's no longer cold. But your situation may be different. It's not a terrible idea to put that in there. If you live in a dry climate, just having something like that in there will help because it'll be somewhat damp and the evaporation itself will keep it a little bit cooler. I don't live in a dry climate. I live in Southwest Missouri where it's fairly humid and that kind of stuff does not work. If you walk outside in the summertime here and the sweat just drips off of you, it doesn't evaporate. So it's a different story here. Mason says, hey, my quail are getting picked on one really bad. Okay, Mason, we answered that question. You got to quit with the spamming, man. I know you're probably done with it already, but Christian says, have you ever used layer feed for your quail? If so, how? If so, any info on using it with your hens and roosters? Layer feed. You're talking about like chicken layer feed? No, I'm not. Well, I mean, I have in a pinch. Like, I can't get to the feed store to get quail food, so I picked up some layer feed from, local, Tractor Supply or something like that, and fed them that for a couple of days, but not on a regular basis. No. It won't hurt them. I mean, they can eat that stuff if you want them to eat that, but it's not the absolute best diet for them. I personally believe they need a higher protein level than what that'll provide them with to be optimum. So I don't feed it to them on a regular basis. I can't really give you specific, details on it or anything like that. But, so I don't know. I can't answer that one for you, unfortunately. All right, so where are we at here? Hello, TBR. Essentially, Kimberly says, Wilt and I do ice bottles and gentle sprays of water around the aviary. That's probably a good suggestion as well. Again, if you live in a dry climate, spraying around can help. If you don't live in a dry climate, it doesn't really do any good. Gravity Toy says, I don't believe Heather understands the meaning of the word cannibal. I don't know what you mean by that either, but okay. The Real Chris says, I love quail. They're my favorite animals to keep. Awesome. I like them too. And Marie says, how much Ivamec do I give my rabbits? Well, I mean, none if you can help it. But if you need to use it, I don't remember the dosage. It's a pretty small amount. If you're treating them for like skin mites or something like that, then, I'm sorry, I don't remember the dosage. You're going to have to look it up. I don't use the stuff myself. I've never had to use it on my rabbits. There is a place for it if you are dealing with some kind of parasite on them or something. But other than that, I don't find any reason to use it. So I've never had to. Pierre says, God bless Antarctica, keeping cold here. How are the squash now? Okay, you're in Antarctica. You're keeping it cold there. Yeah, I like the summertime. It makes me appreciate the winter. The winter makes me appreciate the summer. It's one of the things I like about living in Southwest Missouri is we get a true winter. It's pretty mild, especially the last couple of years. It's been pretty mild, but it does get cold down to about 0 degrees. We get some snow, some of those kinds of things, and it stays that way for a couple of months. So we get winter time, and it makes me appreciate the summer more. So by the time winter's done, I am ready for summer. And by the time summer's done, it's hot. It's been, hot for so long that I'm ready for fall. And we get all 4 seasons, and that's what I like. But anyway, how are the squash now? Well, they're doing pretty good. I answered this a little bit earlier, so this is going to be a little bit of a short answer. But I had one of the, I had one that died right there. I mean, that was in the video I showed that. It was dead already. I pulled it out and threw it out. So and I went around to the other squash and I dug out the vine borers out of all of them. And all of them are doing fine except for one. It's wilting. It looks like it's going to die too. But the rest of them are doing just fine. Looks like I caught them early enough. All right. Fred says, do you fall garden also? Somewhat. I grow some lettuce and some spinach and, sometimes radishes, peas, some of those kinds of things in smaller amounts in the fall. But yeah, it's something I do occasionally. I don't know how big I'll do this year. We'll see. All right, essentially Kimberly says, I don't know, it seems like the coolness from the bottles, they walk away if it gets too cold. Yeah, that could be. It says, last litter my doe had 11 babies. I let her raise them all. They remained noticeably small till now. I may need to make that tough call to remove some next time. I just don't know. I don't know if it matters or not how many babies they have. As to how big they're going to get, it probably makes a little bit of an impact on it. One thing I've noticed is, this is, excuse me, sucked a piece of dust down my throat at that time. Or probably a bug or something flying around. Oh well, more protein, right? Where was I going with that? So I don't know that it matters how many babies they have as to how big they're going to grow or how fast they're going to grow. One thing I've noticed is, I did a litter pretty late, and they're about a month old right now, and they are not very big. They're not growing very big at all. And it's not a big litter. I've only got like 4 left. But I think that it has to do with the heat more than anything. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. All right. BR says, Chris, how loud are the male quails? I'm in Minnesota and wondering if they can live outside, especially in the winter. We do get to single digits and negative temps in the winter. They'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Go for it. Yeah, they'll be fine. They're incredibly hardy. And as far as how loud they are, I mean, they sound like a songbird. They're not incredibly loud. If you had them right next to if you live on a small lot and you have them right next to your neighbor's house, they're going to hear them. Depends on your neighbors as to if that's whether they're going to be annoying or not. My neighbor likes it. In fact, I have one neighbor back there where the quail are closest to his yard, but he's got a fairly good sized yard, so his house is a little ways away. He said one day he was out there working or something like that in his backyard. He's got a privacy fence. And he had the gate open back in the back where I was out there working on the quail hutch or something. And he came out and he said, "What do you have back here?" And I told him, I showed him what they were. And he was like, for the longest time, I thought those were just some kind of songbird. He said, and then I kept hearing the same sounds all, over and over again from the same place. I thought, he's got to have something back here. It didn't bother him at all. He wasn't complaining. He just didn't even realize they were quail in a cage for a long time. But my other neighbor says she loves to hear them crow. So, there's a couple of things to consider there. But as far as keeping them outside, they'll do fine outside. Give them a shelter, give them a place to get out of the wind and the weather. They'll be fine. The hardest part about wintertime is just keeping them watered because the water freezes. So you got to replace it like a couple times a day. All right. Jesse says, "Hey, man, love your channel. So much useful information." Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Let's see. Saline Agape says, "I have 4-day-old A&M chicks in with 4 to 8-day-old Pharaoh chicks. 6 A&M chicks have just up and died in the last 24 hours. Any ideas?" 4-day-old in with 4 to 8-day-old Pharaoh. But, it's possible. I mean, if your brooder temperature is not warm enough, they may be piling up on each other. That's the most common thing I run into in my brooder. If I have birds die in the brooder, it's usually because it's a little bit on the cool side and they're piling up underneath the heat lamps to get warm, and they end up trampling a couple of them on the bottom and killing them. That's the most common issue I run into. If they have access to the water where they can actually get in and get themselves wet, that's another thing that can do it. Those are probably the two most common things. There is such a thing as a terminal gene in some birds, though, and some birds have it where they just suddenly die, for no reason. But I doubt that's the case. It could be something else. Heather says, "Love the channel, hate the guy." I guess you're talking about me, but that's okay. Heather's gone already. And by the way, if you hate me, that's fine. I don't know why you want to follow my channel, but you hate me. But that's okay. If you hate me, you can hate me. It's perfectly all right. Michael says, "I was having a problem with some quail poop smell in my small yard. To solve it, I moved my 1-gallon water to the water container, I think it is, to the sand side, and filled it up to 3 to 5 inches to keep the sand out. Now the poop stays dry." Yeah, you're absolutely right with that. If you have, the quail poop itself, when it's dry, it's not bad. When it's wet, wow, that's a rough smell. Like you said, you're having problems with that smell in your small yard for sure. If you've got the water where the water's leaking or dripping or something like that, and it gets on the poop itself, then that's going to cause some problems. Looks like we got. What was going on here? Sorry, I got distracted there. All right, how are we doing on time? Oh my gosh, only a couple of minutes left. All right, Sam says, "What size cages do you use for quail?" I think I already answered that. About 1 square foot per bird is kind of what you can consider. I did talk about it a little bit earlier, so I'm going to move on because we're running short on time here. Hopefully it was you I answered already. Wilton says, "It's horrible hot." Oh, it's horrible hot in Arizona. We're about 110 today. There's a couple of different comments to other people. Essentially, Kim, I'm never, okay, and then let's see. Hey, Chris. Hey, there's my Sheriff Farm. Says, "Hey, Chris, glad I got to watch. Great info and fun. Thanks. We were just talking about you, man, just a few minutes ago about how you probably knew answers that I didn't know. So hopefully some of the viewers go check out your channel because I know you've got a lot of good content on there and we were recommending you. So thanks for joining, by the way. Appreciate that. Where are we at here? Verna says, "Hey, Zach, I was talking about you earlier." Yep, see, we were talking about you. The real Chris says, "I want to be with a rabbit for meat." I think, I'm not sure what you mean exactly, Chris. I think you're saying you want to get a rabbit for meat, so do it if you want to. I'm sorry, I'm kind of lost on that one. What is that? Christina Nelson says, "How much do you feed your breeder bucks and does?" I've done a video on that before. Basically, feed them as much as they'll eat within 24 hours. You wanted to clean up all their food within 24 hours. And that's usually like 6 ounces or something like that for most of my rabbits. I've got a little measuring cup that I use, and I just fill it up and dump it in there. But I just watch my rabbits. So if I put that whole cup in that food in their feeder, and the next day I come back and there's pellets left over, they get a little bit less that day. And then if I come back the next day and they're standing by the feeder like, feed me, feed me, feed me, well, I'll give them just a little bit more. Now, once the rabbit has babies, then her feeder stays full from that point on. As soon as she has her babies, I fill the feeder up, keep it full all the time. Hopefully that answers that for you. All right, where are we at on time? Boy, I got to get this wrapped up. So, excuse me. All right, where are we at here? If I did not get your comment answered tonight, I am sorry about that. You can kind of come back after the video posts and it's no longer live. Leave your comment on there. And, yeah, sorry. I'm getting distracted by the comments. I got to quit looking. I won't ever get off here. And it's already 8 o'clock. It's time for me to get off here, go spend some time with the family before bed. Where are we at here with this? What was I saying? Oh, yeah. If I didn't get your question answered, then come back after the video post, after it's live, and post it as a comment. And I'm trying to get back in the habit. I've been doing a little bit better the past couple of days, getting on here and answering comments. So I'll try to get back and respond to your comment that way. Other than that, hopefully we see you guys next week. God bless you guys. Hopefully you all stay safe. Have a great weekend. And again, God bless. Good night. We'll see you then. Take care.